STEM City USA Healthy Doses series is your passport to a balanced lifestyle. Hosted by Dr. Tiffany Anderson and presented in the Boston Scientific Auditorium. And now, Dr. Tiffany Anderson.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Metaverse. We are live here in STEM City, USA, and this is Healthy Doses, brought to you by Boston Scientific. Healthy Doses is a great show that we put together to give you the tools, resources, thoughts, ideas, everything that you need to be the best you possible. And the way we do that is by listening to our wonderful host, Dr. Tiffany Anderson. Good morning, Doc. How you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you, Ray?
I'm fantastic.
Yes.
So I know we have a great topic today. I dressed up for the occasion. Tell us what we're talking about.
Yes. So today we are talking about protecting your peace and what that looks like. And so first of all, I love this topic because I think it can be a bit trendy, like, oh, protect your peace, protect your peace. But
Yeah.
I can say, I think throughout the years, it's really become a lifestyle in my life, like what that looks like and how important it is to protect your peace. Because if you don't do it, no one else will do it for you, right? And so just thinking of how it's kind of grown in the spotlight, how mental health and the care of one's health has grown and became, I would say, trendy, but also really important, right? So I was thinking of athletes, right? And how it's been kind of this growing phenomenon to talk about protecting your peace and to talk about protecting one's like mental health and what that looks like, right? So I have two great examples of that. So we have two phenomenal women of color tennis players, right? So we have Naomi Osaka and we have Venus Williams. So in regards to Naomi, she actually recently, within the last year or so, quit the French Open for her own mental health after she was threatened to be fined and even disqualified for not wanting to speak to the press. And what she said is that I hope that people can relate and understand that it's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to talk about not being okay, right? And so when we think about protecting our peace, it may come as an inconvenience to others. It may potentially come at an initial inconvenience for ourselves, right? But it is a choice that this thing that I wanted to do that I can no longer do is not worth the sake of my peace, right? And Venus Williams spoke about how she protects her peace. And it's really by keeping in mind who she is, right? That she is the champ. She said that she is who she is, and no one can hold a candle to her. She said the people that write about her cannot hold a candle to her, right? So she doesn't think about or care about how they feel about her because she knows who she is. And that's just a beautiful example of folks that we see in the media, folks that look like us, that are choosing themselves, choosing what feels best for them, even at the expense of sometimes their reputation, their career, their titles, but they recognize that peace is just as important as accolades and validation. So when we return, we're going to continue this conversation after this commercial break from our sponsors, Boston Scientific.
All right, everybody. We're about to jump into this topic of protecting your peace. But before we get into this conversation, which is very much needed, I want to remind you that you can interact with Dr. Anderson and I. You can share your stories. You can tell us how you're protecting your peace. What are some of your best techniques that you use to protect your peace? We'd love to hear that and love to share it with people so people can have an idea how they can protect their peace. You can do that by scanning the QR code right in the top right or left corner, whichever one. We're mirrored. Sorry, but scan it with your phone. And you could post anonymously, or you can add your name if you want to. You can also check your chat button in just a few minutes, and there will be a link that can go there, just in case you are on your phone and can't scan the screen with your phone. And so we would love to hear from you. You could also chat with other members who are watching in the metaverse right now. There's a chat button to the left of your screen. So do that, interact with us. We'd love to hear from you. Dr. Anderson, um, protecting your peace has been such a hot button topic, what's the word I want to say? A trigger word in the media and pop culture at the moment. But it is really such a important topic, and it's not always easy. Like you said, when you talk about athletes, I always get excited. But Naomi Osaka, I'm a big fan of hers. But she was threatened to get fined, and the bottom line of organizations don't always consider the individual and what they need to be mentally stable. And so protecting your peace is really, really important. And I'm excited to jump into that topic. So to get started, how about we clearly define what you mean by protect your peace?
When you say clearly defined, it may look differently for everyone, but the over kind of arching idea, right, of protecting one's peace is it's a lifelong journey of removing certain things from your life, making changes and developing certain skills to make your life more easy, right? To make your life more enjoyable, to kind of cultivate more joy and a contentment in your life, right? So it's an everyday kind of experience that really allows the individual to think of themselves and to intentionally create or place things in their lives that bring contentment, that bring joy, that bring ease. And ultimately, it's what we're learning is one of the kind of greatest joys we can do, because with a peaceful life, you can really be present in the moment and not make rash decisions because you're always on the go, right? Or always tending to someone else, or always rushing, or always moving. When you have peace in your life, you have this sense of like serenity and understanding that although we can't control everything that happens, we can control how we respond to things that happen in our life. Life is going to life, and we know
Life be life, ain't
that life.
it? So, um, let's talk about why this has kind of become such a hot topic. What happens when your peace is threatened? Like, how does that really start to affect your day to day? What does that look like? Why is this important to have?
Uh, it's many things. So our peace can be threatened in a variety of ways, right? A big one that I know personally is the need for validation, the need to be understood and to kind of be seen and have folks like clapping for you and aware of what you're kind of putting out there, right? Just the need for them to say, like, good job, that can threaten your peace because, and we've talked about this in other shows, because you can't control how folks respond to you and what they do. And one thing, a saying I heard that was really important, it was just saying, what people think of you is none of your business. I was like, you know what? That's really helpful, especially if it's not going to serve you or benefit you. The folks in your life, you generally know how they feel about you because they're there, they're pouring into you, and it's usually a positive response or constructive and loving criticism, right? But a big one that threatens it is always kind of seeking that validation from others. It can interrupt your peace. It can absolutely interrupt your peace. Um, Next, something is ruminating over the past, kind of being stuck there, not being able to enjoy the present moment. Where I'm sure there's times where you can I think about not taking pictures at certain events because when I'm taking pictures, I'm distracted, right? So I think about being present in that moment. When we're constantly stuck on the past, we're not enjoying the present moment and we don't get those moments back, right? And so we want to kind of avoid those things and work through them. Whatever you're stuck on, begin to work through them. It's really hard to be peaceful when you cannot let go of what happened. You know? The next is the opposite, worrying too much about the future. That's me, right? So again, when we talk about being in the present moment, it's very difficult to be in the present moment when you're constantly worried about what if, what could be, what's going to happen, when we simply don't know. When we simply don't know. And oftentimes the present moment is what can positively influence the future. But if you're not here, yeah, you're not intentionally influencing what's going to happen there. So we want you to be present in the moment. Your future will be, God willing, that we wake up and continue to live it. But that's another thing. You know, we believe and hope that it will, but we don't know what tomorrow looks like. And again, that's why it's important to be present and to enjoy the people around you and the experiences because we don't know how long we'll get to continue to experience this lifetime. So we want to avoid thinking about um, too much of the future and kind of lingering on what could happen, what may happen, the what ifs, and all that unnecessary stuff that we can't control. Um, the the next one is the need for perfection. We know perfection doesn't exist, um, but for those that are perfectionists, they're usually always kind of restless because they believe that their idea or their creation is never enough. And think about times when something didn't go the way you wanted it to go. Think about where your mind goes. Think about how you feel and how your body responds to that sense of resentment or guilt or shame, um, or even a sense of betrayal of maybe someone or something didn't go right. Think about what that takes away from you and think about the energy that kind of is stored in your body when you do that. I know that very well. And so a lot of that is being able to extend yourself grace in the moment and just saying you did the best that you could, and that's enough, right? If we're not able to do that, then we are literally threatening our peace every single time. And we have to work really hard at that. I know I do personally, that going back and just saying it was fine, who came was supposed to be there, who wasn't. It's all divine, right? Everything is happening. And then just take the life lessons as they are instead of beating yourself up over something that already happened and cannot be changed. So I want to push that narrative. If we can't change it, release it. If we have no control over it, release it. Because now we're just losing precious time and energy when we can be pouring back into ourselves. Let me give you a few more. We can move on. Another one that threatens our peace is the need to control other people. A lot of folks don't like to talk about this. Um, what other people say and do is not up to us, right? We can try to kind of restrict their sense of freedom or kind of set certain rules or use certain punishment and rewards for them. Their response is not within our control. And the more we want to or we try to control them, the more frustrated we get and the less likely we'll have peace in our lives, right? So a big thing about peace is that you understand that you only have a set kind of I don't know if it's a number, percentage amount, I would say a set amount of control, and that is you. That's it. And so the fact that you may kind of push or try to coerce or force certain things on other people, you're going to oftentimes be let down because you don't have full control ever of anyone else's behavior, right? So I want you to remove that um, urge to try to control individuals to do what you want, because you're going to consistently be let down because they have free will and they will do ultimately what they want to do in the end, right? Just be aware of that. Next, another one is folks having this kind of fear of aging and death. Um, we know that it is inevitable. Some people are very much kind of hyper focused and hyper vigilant on aging and, preventing any type of health issues or health scares, which is fine. However, it does get to a certain kind of extreme when you're trying to prevent something that is ultimately inevitable. And so, yes, we want to be healthy, we want to live an intentional life, but we also don't want it to get to a place where we're um, over kind of concerned in a way that it kind of takes over our lives, right? And our sense of peace, consistently thinking about it or preventing age. I'm sure we can think of a person that is like constantly trying to prevent like wrinkles or, just kind of growing up or um, just kind of being considered in a certain like age bracket or group and this is the thing, it's inevitable. Aging is inevitable, and there's so much growth. Um, and I think, I think there's beauty in what we learn in different seasons of our lives. And so I just want us to um, just be aware of how much we focus on that and make sure it's not taking away from our own lives, because stress will cause aging. Okay. So it's counterproductive. Think about it. It's counterproductive. just, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Take care of yourself in the best way that you can, but try not to prevent certain things that will just cause you more stress and more harm in the end, because it's definitely not necessary. And lastly, the need to kind of defend yourself. Remember, what people think about is not our business. So certain things are worth defending, and certain things are it just is. It just is. It just is. And again, if you feel like it's not worth your peace, it's not worth a conversation or disputing a rumor or things like that, let it go, because life be life.
Life be life.
And
That
that's,
might have to be the tagline
yeah,
of this show. Because
life.
life do be life. Dr. Anderson, you just gave us a list of things that are a threat to your peace.
Yeah.
And so there has to be a cause of this peace. So kind of run with me for a second. Who would you say is the biggest threat to your peace, your own personal peace? And just by listening to the different things that you ran down, just to kind of recap, you talked about the need for validation, ruminating about the past, worrying about the future, worrying about death, worrying about aging, the need for control over people or people's control over you, the fear of the unknown. If I was a detective and I was trying to figure out who the threat is, the threat is yourself. Would you agree with that?
We're on the same page.
Is that one of the I mean, other people can definitely kind of disrupt your peace, and I would love to kind of jump into, how do we, we talked about the threats, and so we got to talk about how do you, rectify, and how do you solve. But yeah, can we just talk about the different the who, whether it's yourself or who is the biggest threat to your peace, would you say?
That's a great question. Yes, it is us. And I don't know if that's the obvious choice for some or a shocking discovery for some, but it is. And I say that because so you may hear this saying when someone says my mom made me feel this way, or my mom made me angry. And the challenge to that is that no one can make you anything, right? It is a conscious choice that you made. And not that it's conscious, it could be unconscious, it can be innate, right? But that's a trigger and that's a natural response. But mom or anyone can't make you anything, right? We have the full control and power of how we respond to any adversity, to any kind of life adversions in our life. We have the power, and that's the beauty in it. And I really want to kind of encourage our audience today to say, like, that's the beauty in this life that we're living, is that we have more control than we give ourselves credit for, right? And if we are easily swayed, um, or influenced or manipulated, it can easily feel like life is just kind of kicking our butts, right? And constantly like banging us and, just kind of throwing us, because that's what it feels like. However, I want to encourage you, right? That life will life. Amen. Life will life, but we still have the power of how we respond. I'm trying to think of like a personal story. I'm sure I have many. Um,
Pick one.
but one that really kind of comes to mind. Well, one that comes to mind is being in like the parking lot, and I have this thing where I sit in my car forever. I don't. My mom does the same thing, and I like people watch and things like that. And I remember just sitting in my car, Ray, and this older woman comes in, pulls in, boom, hits my car. And I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. Like
While you're sitting in it.
while I'm sitting in the car. And I'm like, so how do I respond to this? Right? Like, how do I respond to this? Do I want to get insurance? Is it that big of a deal? Is it worth it? And I remember like looking at the damage, and it wasn't much. I remember her saying, I didn't do that. And I looked at her and I said, yes, you did. Like, I was in the car. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you did. And she said, no, I didn't. I said, well, I have a red car, but it's a green scratch. Whose car is green? And she said, oh, okay. And so in that moment, I'm deciding, like, what do I want to do? And I said, you know what? You can just go on ahead and shop. You could just go ahead. And she was like, okay. And she just walked off. And I remember in that moment, like, choosing my peace, because I don't need to get into it with an elder woman in this park. It is not necessary for a small scratch. Like, choosing my peace in that moment. And it was like, I just remember sitting back and being like, whew, that's growth. That is growth. 'Cause I was so triggered in that moment when she denied my experience. And it was just like, you know what? It is not that big of a deal, and moving on. Right. So we fast forward years later, I'm pulling in and someone's sitting in their car, and I hit the bottom of it. And I remember I was so confused. And the woman came out and she looks and she says, you know what? It's no damage. You have a great day. And I was like,
That's karma.
whew, thank
That's
you.
karma.
Yep. And so things come full circle. And obviously was my intention. I mean, I would never deny her. I heard it, but I was confused. Like, is that my car? And so she was like, she looked, it's no damage, ma'am. And she was so kind. Like, you have a great day. And I was like, thank you. But I was prepared to give insurance, like consequences. Life will life. If that's a consequence, it's just a consequence. But it was just one of those experiences, Ray, where I was like, you know what, like you said, karma and returning the favor, but absolutely like growth and being able to extend grace to that woman and extend grace to myself when it happened to me. That says, Tiff, life is just, it's okay. You just having a rough day, girl. And that spot was kind of tight. Next time, we're not going to do that. So that's just a personal example of just things being full circle and literally choosing my piece and someone else choosing theirs. Because she could
Choosing
have
peace.
pushed it if she wanted to. Yeah.
Look, I wanna say real quick, Dr. Anderson, shout out to Sterling McKinley, who is our STEM City digital host. I don't know if you guys had a chance to check out, but we had an amazing Green Summit yesterday, and he did an amazing job. But he did take the words right out of my mouth when you just talk about growth, because that's what that is. Because somebody immature like me would have chose violence. And no, I'm just
Just kidding.
no, I'm joking. I'm completely
Right.
joking. I don't want no ladies
No
coming
issue.
after me.
No coming back for
But
Yeah.
that is so easy to do that. And then we talk about the stresses of the situations and the consequences of your actions. You have to think about that to make sure peace is usually the right way to go. And protecting your peace, requires peace. And so one of the things I want to get back and talk about, we talked about the threats to your peace, but let's talk about how do we get to that point where we choose peace over violence? Because the easy option is to snap, is to pop off, is to choose violence, right? That's the easy. So what are some techniques? What are some things we can do? And Dr. Anderson, I would love to hear what you do personally to protect your peace. And so I'm excited for the second half of this conversation, which we'll get into right after these messages. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
For more than 40 years, Boston Scientific has relied on our spirit of relentless innovation to advance science for life. We have the privilege and responsibility to deliver higher quality, less invasive, and more accessible device solutions, and the need has never been greater. Boston Scientific technologies are used to treat roughly 30 million patients around the world each year. Across our business, our products are supported by vast clinical data, including bench testing, randomized controlled trials, and ongoing real-world evidence to ensure the highest quality products make it into the hands of our customers. And we're always looking for ways to provide even more effective therapies and solutions. We invest over $1 billion annually in research and development to sustain a robust pipeline of meaningful innovations. We continuously strengthen our manufacturing and operations capabilities with artificial intelligence and advanced microelectronics to create devices that are smaller and smarter. And we're collaborating with our medical partners and physicians to advance digital capabilities with remote device support and a broad scope of training and education programs. Advancing science for life is also about supporting our employees and the communities in which we operate. Now more than ever, we rely on our values to guide our company as a global business and as a global corporate citizen. We're working to help confront healthcare inequities and social injustice, not only with financial contributions, but through volunteer service, advocacy, and expanding market accessibility. We're also focused on environmental initiatives that move us towards our goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2030. The unmet needs are great, but the future of healthcare is bright. Our innovation centers provide a place to explore opportunities, examine solutions, and see what lies ahead for medicine. Together, we can continue the relentless pursuit of innovation to help everyone live longer, healthier lives and make a difference all over the world.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healthy Doses, where Dr. Anderson and I are discussing protecting your peace. Before we hop back into the conversation, I just want to remind you that the conversation doesn't just have to be between Dr. Anderson and I. So if you have any comments, if you have any tips on how you protect your peace, I would love to hear from it. And we'll throw it up on the screen, because I think the way you protect your peace, there's a lot of different ways, and I would love to share it. You might, give me an idea that, be like, I never thought about that. Let me try that. Or we might be able to share something. And so to do that, go ahead and scan that button right in the top corner. Put it in the chat. We're watching, we're listening, and so we'd love to hear from you. So share that information with us. Dr. Anderson, how do you protect your peace? I know you have your official doctor list, but before we jump into your official breakdown, What are some of your ways? What are some of your favorite ways that you protect your peace?
Official doctor looks hilarious. So, one of my biggest things that's going to come up in the doctor list, right, is saying no, um, and having boundaries. That is one of my biggest things. I have learned um, how to say no. And I think a big thing about protecting your peace, too, that I want to throw out there is that sometimes it can feel like an inconvenience. That's another part of protecting our peace, right? Where I think we talk about it's like, oh, it feels so good and it's so relaxing and so kind of peaceful, and it will, but it is still a practice, and it does require like a lifestyle change that may not always feel comfortable in the beginning. So saying no may not feel comfortable, especially for a person that used to be a people pleaser, right? So I had to go through uh, a lot of the negative thoughts and self doubt of saying no, and being honest when I genuinely don't want to do something, or it's not mutually beneficial, or I just don't have the energy to do it. So that's a big thing, saying no, creating boundaries, and then sticking to them and being consistent. Because if we're not consistent, um, humans are humans, and we are based off of patterns. So if we are doing something and used to doing something, if someone tells us no, we may respect that in the moment, but we may double back the next week and do it again. And so that's why boundaries not just set one time, it has to be consistent, because um, we may fall off, or they may come back and do the same kind of behavior. So, big one for me, say no when I mean no, create those boundaries. Another one for me that comes up in that list too, it says listening to your intuition. I would say listening to, it's the same, intuition, spirit, um, identifying and just being honest about what you simply don't want to do. Yeah, what you, I think we have to give ourselves permission, right, to not do certain things, even if we feel like we should, or folks are depending on us, or they need it more than us. Like, if we can't do it, don't want to do it, don't have the energy to do it, or choose ourselves, we should have the right to do that. And I encourage others to do the same. That if we have an event and someone texts me and says, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well, or I don't have the energy to make it, that I honor that. But I also am responsible for doing that as well, right? When there's certain events, or if I need to reschedule, or if I choose to have a lazy Sunday and I no longer want to do those things. So that's a big thing for me, is saying no when I need to say no, and listening to my spirit and my intuition when something just doesn't feel right, or I just simply need to take a break and get my life together.
Dr. Anderson, I'm gonna press you because you went straight to that list. You went back to that list. You gave me two things off the list. What do you do to you said lazy Sunday? That was kind of the answer I was looking for. But what do you do to disconnect and kind of reset and kind of get into your serenity or your center? What's that look like for you?
Um, the list is a great list.
It
So,
is a great list, and we are going to get to it. I promise you.
right,
But I want that personal. I want that personal. I
yeah,
want that
I mean,
personal
it's
thought.
still the same. It's still the same, but I will shut off everything. Like, I will just go into my own world. Um,
Mhm.
I love to read. I love to write. Um, I need to journal a lot more often, but if I'm like really in it, I will journal. But I will just shut off the world for like 2 days if I can. And not the full day, but maybe like the first half of the day. And then
Yeah.
I'll open myself up for folks when they're like, where you been? Or, I will just go into my happy place, right? To be honest with you, I really have a happy place. I have um, a wild imagination. I have been having in my entire life.
Mhm.
So I can entertain myself. I am one of those folks that can be by herself and entertain herself and not leave the house or anything. And so I would be considered extroverted, but I'm also very introverted when I find the time or when I create the time to just be with me. Yeah. So I love my me time very, very much. And I do a lot of solo dates. So I'll go to lunch and Ray, I will eat outside and just have the best time. Like I love that. Sometimes I'll like FaceTime my mom or my sister, or like family,
Mhm.
just to be connected.
To reconnect.
Yeah, to reconnect because I am
Yeah.
out of state and all my family is in California. But that is like I take myself out on dates. I will take a drive to like my favorite place, like 30 minutes away, and not tell anyone. Like I will just escape. I
Yeah.
would just escape. Thank you for this question. I would just escape and you know, detach from the feeling or the experience of being needed, because as a therapist I am often needed, and as a wife I am needed, as a daughter, as a sister I am needed. And so there are just times where I don't want to be found, I don't want to be needed, I don't want to have to show up for someone else. And so when I do, usually on the weekends because my husband works, I escape after the show. I will escape.
I was about to
Yeah.
say we don't need you escaping right this
Right,
second.
right, right. So after my Saturday shows is me time. It is me time.
Yep. Well, I think we have that in common, Dr. Anderson, because when I was thinking about the question while you were talking, a lot of what I do is escapism as well.
Mhm.
Different ways though. I'm a gamer. I'm a gamer. I love playing video games. I
Mm,
love Madden. I love Call of Duty. I love these things, and that's my way of escaping. That's my way of kind of shutting out the outside world because in this virtual world, uh,
mm,
you don't have to do a lot of thinking. You can kind of just exist and you're not stressed about, you're not doing any of those threats that we just talked about, thinking about the future
right.
or thinking about what's to come or things to control. All you're doing is just you in the game. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of, I guess, this just younger generation, probably more so than me, because we're millennials, right? We're kind of at that bridge of like the old school of thought and the new digital age and kind of be able to dance between both worlds. But the younger generation, I think it's just all straight escapism. And I think that's probably the topic we need to talk about
Right.
later.
Right.
But another thing you say is reading. And so I kind of cheat because I use audiobooks. But usually when I'm listening, when I'm driving, if I'm not reading and I'm listening to it, my mind kind of goes into that world, right?
Mm,
So you know me, I'm a big geek. I love sci-fi. You see, the things behind me. It's just a lot of different pop culture things behind me. But like if I'm listening to a podcast or if I'm listening to Lord of the Rings or I'm listening to Game of Thrones or something like that, like I can be in that world mentally, which is a good shut off as well. And then there's things like what you said, shutting down, going off the grid, putting my phone on do not disturb. So like there's no external input, if you will, to kind of come in and rock. Um, and so, yeah, those are just ways to kind of make sure that you're able to kind of recenter and collect yourself, so that way you can choose peace instead of choosing violence or choosing some other way that would definitely disrupt your peace.
mhm.
So, Dr. Anderson, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for opening it up and giving me the opportunity to do the same. But let's go through some other ways that people can protect their peace.
Mhm.
You can go to your list now.
Actually, my doctor list.
Your
Uh,
doctor list.
yeah. So we talked about saying no. We talked about boundaries and connecting those two. Listening to your intuition, very, very obviously important. Especially if you're choosing your peace, you need to know what you actually need. And that's the importance of listening and listening to your intuition, and not relying on anyone. You can't rely on anyone to really tell you what it is, because it's going to be inaccurate for the most part, or not extremely detailed, because only you know what you need. Next, you may want to cut those ties with certain individuals that no longer serve you and your growth and where you're headed. Um, when you cut ties, it doesn't have to be anything extreme or negative or rude or anything. You can start to put yourself first, right? If I'm cutting ties and I'm simply just spending more time with myself, I just don't have the time, as much time as I used to kind of put into certain relationships that don't pour back into me. That can be a conversation if you think it is necessary. It's whatever you deem is healthy and works. But a lot of times when you start pouring into you, certain relationships will just naturally kind of fizzle out because it's not about them. Okay. So consider cutting ties with certain folks that you feel are not kind of giving you the same reciprocity that you've been giving them in relationships. You want to nourish your body, so you want to continue to eat well. You want to exercise. You want to drink your water. You want to get, sufficient amount of sleep. You want to go outside as much as you can. Be in nature is something that I also love to do. Although I can't stay in the house for a very long time. But when I'm out, I do like to be present and in the moment, and just allowing the divine, natural kind of energy that the trees produce and all those things kind of be a part of my life as well. Be conscious of your thoughts. Your thoughts determine your state of mind. They determine how you respond, your behaviors, and your thoughts. Again, you have control over them. So you are the one that is in the driver's seat. Sometimes we like to hop in the passenger seat and let them take us where they go, but oftentimes that is not the destination that you need to go to. So I need you in the front seat. I need you to be intentional about how you respond, and knowing that choosing your peace sometimes feels as if it is an inconvenience in the moment, right? So it may not be instant gratification. I need you to know that it may be you being the bigger person. It may be you avoiding certain conflicts because they don't serve you or it won't benefit the conversation or the relationship, right? It may be you missing out on that party you really wanted to go to spend quality time with yourself. Like, these may be the things, but so it may not feel instant until you're living in it, right? Until you go to that place where it is peaceful and you're like, that is where you feel it. So be okay, right, with being inconvenienced and potentially inconveniencing other people to feel better in the long run. Okay. Next, we want to declutter our lives. That's not just our home environment, it's also our digital lives, right? What are we consuming on social media, right? What does our friendships look like? What does our circle and our tribes look like, right? We want to consider decluttering that. My mom would always say when I was younger in school, if you look in your backpack will determine what your brain looks like. And if my backpack was cluttered with paper and scraps and everything, and she would say, how does your brain feel? Because that's an indication of how you're operating right now. It is not organized. It is not clear. You need to declutter and keep it that way. So
I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna need your help with that one, Dr. Anderson, because translate that to grown, look at your desk.
yes,
Everything
that's the
just all over the place. But that's me. But sometimes I feel comfortable like that. Like it feels like it makes sense to me. And there is a point where it's like too much. And then I gotta be like, okay, let me get this back in order. So I guess it's a threshold, but yeah, no, I was the junkie backpack kid. I had papers in there from, September, and it's, the end of the year.
Just
Yeah.
there. But yeah, I learned that at an early age to pay attention to that. But think about how it does feel when you clean out your space, Ray. Like,
oh, it's amazing. It's refreshing.
Yes.
Refreshing is probably the best word.
Yes.
Mentally, physically, I feel like the air cleans up a little bit better. So yeah. No, I think
Declutter. Declutter your mind, declutter what you're consuming, declutter your space, like all of those things. And when you have the energy to do it, go as hard as you can, right? Because it's not every day that we have that energy, or that kind of yearning to clean up our space. And that's just our intuition telling us that it is time, to make room for new things, new opportunities, new energy, new positivity, just to make room. So clean up your space, clean up your circle, clean up what you're consuming and what you're taking in, because that is a huge influence, Next, know your vision. Know what you want to do, right? What you want to create. So some people do that with like journaling or vision boards or visualization, or those type of things. Again, I always had um, a, a very vivid imagination. So visualization is something that I just do naturally. Been doing my entire life, kind of seeing things for the bigger picture and all those things, and what I want to create. Um, and so you can do that various ways, but you can do that with your journaling. You can do that with affirmations. You can do that with a vision board. You can do that with talking with a trusted friend or confidant, and just speaking what you want to create and allowing them to kind of help you to kind of sift out that information, right? So just know your vision, know what you want to do and how you want to create a peaceful and enjoyable life. And then lastly, and I slightly talked about this, turning off your phone notifications. And I mean, on apps. I mean, sometimes your phone on do not disturb. Um, think about how many times you are interrupted and distracted by a notification from an app. Think about it. That's so much time. And if you are having a great day and you get in something you read because you just picked up your phone or got a notification, be aware of how quickly your energy shifts. Um, be aware of what changes, where your thoughts go, how you respond. Just be aware of that. But if it is not serving you, if it is not an emergency, if you do not have to respond, consider turning those notifications off, especially on social media apps. There is nothing you need to be doing unless that's your money. But even that, I need you to limit that, right? But celebrity gossip, all that is not important. I really want us to take the time to think and pour back into ourselves, right? So if we are needing time for self, consider that. Strongly consider decreasing the distractions in your life.
That's such an awesome list, and very helpful to me, and I really hope it was helpful to you all. I have one more, at least one that I want to question and see if this is accurate to add to the list, because you said it came to mind earlier when you were talking about Venus, right? And you said Venus said, can't nobody be me. Y'all can't hold a candle to me, and that was threats that was coming at her. And so I was thinking, confidence. Is confidence kind of like armor for your peace, right? If you know who you are and you're confident in yourself, there's not too many outside forces that can kind of penetrate that, right? When you know who you are, you know where you're going. One of the things was know your vision. When you know where you're going, that's not a whole lot. Like, you are the only person that can kind of rock that. And so do you want to comment on that? Is that kind of in the right ballpark of just kind of having that confidence and knowing your path and kind of how your peace needs to be?
Yeah, I like confidence. I would add to that one of self-awareness.
Mm.
And I add that because confidence can also be kind of shaken. What if someone can eventually hold a candle to you, right?
Mhm.
And so, confidence is not, this is my opinion, may not be as kind of steadfast as someone who is self-aware and knows themselves beyond their titles, right? And beyond their talents and their gifts, that they know that they are worthy just because, right? And that they don't have to serve the public or do anything to be like validated in every moment, that they simply know, like you said, know where they're going, knowing where they're headed, um, but that they know who they are at their core, and that they're more worthy than anything they can do on or off the court. Yeah, self love too is a good one if we're just throwing things out there. But yeah, that's a good list.
Look, Dr. Anderson, I know we're getting towards the rest of the show, and so before I pass it off to you for your final thoughts and final word, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for joining us for this such an important topic,
Mhm.
powerful topic. I think some of the things that I've learned today is life be lifing,
Mhm.
and choose peace. You have to choose peace to have stability in your life, and so we had a lot of options, a lot of tips. I still want to hear from you. I know we're coming to a close, but drop the ways that you choose peace, drop ways that you protect your peace in the comments. We would love to hear from you. We want people to be able to read it and kind of see your thoughts as well, because you never know who you might be helping by offering those tips. And so with that, Dr. Anderson, I'm gonna give you the final word.
Alrighty. So I again really, really, really enjoyed this topic. Um, it's one of those things that is an everyday journey, and not to be kind of overconsumed or like, oh, it's just small intentional choices that we make every day that says, okay, this would bring joy to my life, or this will make my life a bit more easy, or this will um, just make me feel a bit more content, right? And so when we're thinking about protecting our peace, just think about the things that don't always feel beneficial to you. Think about the ways that you have denied yourself in certain moments, in certain interactions with individuals. Think about that, because that's what we take home with us, right? Those are the conversations that you're like, ugh, I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have spoke up for myself, or. And so those are the moments where we're determining our peace. Is peace going to come from speaking up, which it can absolutely come from that? Or is peace going to come from self-awareness, right? Of knowing that these folks can't hold a candle to who you are, and your character, right? So um, just think about that and consider that in regards to seeking out support. It may be a time where you feel in complete chaos, if you feel like my life hasn't been enjoyable, I haven't experienced joy in a very long time. If you think that you are just simply wanting more joy, yeah, and you want help and support with someone kind of fostering that for you, helping you to bring it in and help you to know what you want. Because a lot of us don't always know. We're not always extremely in touch with our intuition, right? If you want that support, I do strongly suggest that you seek professional help, that you seek, like I said, confidants, folks that you can trust, that you seek group therapy, but you just simply don't have to do this alone, right? And so we don't have to kind of tough out certain situations anymore, um, that we've kind of been taught to do, that it just feels like I just have to go through this, right? Because this is a part of the job. This is a part of the relationship. This is part of the friendship. I really want to challenge you in this moment and let you know that to tough it out is your decision, but no one's forcing you to do that, and that you do have options in how you respond, right? And how you choose yourself. So consider that. Lastly, I want to take a moment to give you all just a quick homework assignment. I don't always do this, but I want you to consider journaling about what you may need in your life, right? And what actions you need to take to change in order to protect your peace. Think about if you want to pick up certain hobbies that bring you joy. Consider certain people or certain environments that may bring you joy, right? So journal about those things. I want us to get in just better awareness of what we need. And so I have lists, I have information, but this is not exhaustive, right? So it may look very different for you compared to what we talked about today, but doesn't matter as long as you are intentional about chasing your peace, about finding your peace, about discovering your peace. It will all work out in your benefit. Okay. So for next week, we are going to highlight love languages and what that looks like in various relationships. So join us next week on Saturday at 11 a.m. Thank you all so much.
We know how to treat the colds and the coughs. We know how to treat the bumps and the bruises, the cuts and fractures. But how do we treat, I can't afford a day off work to see a doctor? How do we treat, I've never had a doctor who speaks my language? How do we treat, I don't know how to connect with some of my patients? How do we treat, you're not listening? We can't treat what we cannot see. So we have to look closer and see what we're missing. People, patients, misdiagnosed, misunderstood, overlooked. These are the people left out of a system charged with helping them. And it's up to us to find them in our communities, in our relationships, in our data. We're meeting them where they are, discovering who they are. We're taking an honest look to understand their healthcare needs and delivering effective ways to reach them. We don't have all the answers, but together we can find the way to address the gaps in our healthcare system, to provide something better, to find more chances to save more lives. It won't be easy, but we can help make it right, because no one should be missed.